Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. My name is Gabriela Embon, former chemical engineer, relationship coach, and author. In each episode, we'll uncover the wisdom, strategies, and tools to help you build thriving relationships and purpose-driven careers. My wish is that something shared in this space touches your heart, brings clarity, or gently guides you toward what you need most in your life right now. Thank you for being here. Let's begin now. Welcome back to the Life Engineering Podcast, where we decode what it really takes to engineer a life of no regrets. And I want to start today with something I hear all the time when working with clients, especially those reflecting back on a relationship that it's not easy currently. No, it's not going as easy as they hope. They usually say, Gabriela, I knew we were not compatible from the beginning. It's one of the most honest and painful realizations that we can have. Now, let me be clear. Being compatible doesn't guarantee a happy marriage. What guarantees a happy marriage is learning how to do marriage. It's about building, not coasting. But let's not ignore this truth either. Compatibility gives you the right start. It sets the foundation so you're not trying to build a forever home on a shaky ground. That's exactly why I'm so excited, like truly excited about today's conversation. If you ever found yourself stuck in a relationship, if you are tired of dead-end dating, or if you are ready to stop guessing and start strategically choosing love that lasts, then you are going to love my guest today, because here's the thing no one really talks about, and she will. How do you attract the right person before the vows, the home, and the shared life? How do you stop repeating the same painful patterns and calling someone who actually sees and supports the real you, someone with whom you feel you can truly be yourself? And if you ever felt like you're doing the work but still attracting unavailable partners, you're not alone. And this episode is for you. Because today we're going to talk about the kind of love that doesn't just feel good in the moment. It lasts, it builds, and it brings you home to yourself. So, my guest today is the brilliant Valerie Greene. She's the author of The Commitment Roadmap: From Dating to a Lifetime of Love. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Valerie Greene is a unique relationship mentor. She's an author, she's a speaker who helps women to inspire their men to fulfill their deepest needs and desires. What a beautiful word. A highly successful alternative to relationship therapy, Valerie helps women and couples create a secure emotional connection, not just problem solving or communication skills. Now, here's what you need to know. Valerie holds numerous certifications in coaching, NLP, and emotional healing modalities. She leads workshops, retreats, and online courses for women and couples, and is the creator of a 12-week Manifest Lasting Love coaching program and the author of the book, The Commitment Roadmap, which teaches women how to inspire their man to commit to a lifetime of lasting love. Valerie, I'm so honored to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Gabriela. That was such a fantastic introduction. And even in that, I love the way you introduced the topic, because it's true that finding somebody with whom you're compatible with from the beginning requires a very deep level of self-knowledge.
I can't wait to dive into how do we do this, but obviously before we do, we always like to start understanding where are you coming from? Tell us about your story. What led you to write the Commitment Roadmap? Was there a defining moment in your relationship that made you realize that this framework was needed? Tell us more about the reason behind all your wonderful work.
Yeah, thank you. And it's true. I mean, I've always been very into self-inquiry. It's funny, in my high school yearbook, I was actually voted the most likely to march to the beat of my own drum. So, I mean, I always thought I knew what was important to me in life, and like, what are my values and what is my purpose, and I always had jobs that I thought were meaningful, right? But in my relationships, and it's just because of my my parents were very loving, but my dad was only really knew confrontational language. So we argued all the time. So I was scared of being controlled by a man. So in my 20s, I picked men that were more easygoing, where they were okay with me deciding how things were going to go and, sort of making the plans and making the rules. But then because I'm such a feminine energy person by nature, which, I'll talk about what that means later, I would get frustrated because I didn't want that level of responsibility. I wanted more collaboration. I didn't know how to ask for that because all I knew was confrontational language at that point. So I would start making him wrong about things, and then we'd be arguing. I also didn't want to argue because that's all I knew about. So I'd push conflict under the table until I would get really upset, but then I wouldn't have any other skills. So then we would be arguing, and that would just keep happening over and over again in my 20s until finally I realized I was the common denominator. That, like, because my first boyfriend was when I was 14, and this was when I first started doing coaching. I was actually doing health coaching. I started coaching in 2005, so I was 27 at that point. So I was not ready to do relationship coaching yet because I was still stuck in this pattern of, like, it starts out great, but then within a couple of years, inevitably, we're arguing all the time, or we're distant, we're sleeping in separate beds, we're either arguing all the time, or we're, like, not speaking to each other, we're living like roommates, and it would just keep happening. And I would finally just be like, you know what? This has to change. I need to realize, how do I have a connected and fulfilling relationship? I knew that just after a couple years, it would just feel either disconnected or, like we'd be distant or fighting. How do I get over that pattern? And so I dedicated, even though I was doing health coaching, I dedicated to studying with relationship experts, reading all the books I could find at the time. I studied emotional healing modalities like nonviolent communication, inner relationship focusing, different types of meditation, and regulating my nervous system. And I started using those tools in the trenches with my coaching clients at the time, and in my own relationships, of course. And so it wound up being, even though I was doing health coaching, that the reason that the way that people changed the most when I was helping them was with their relationships. That they would, have shifts in their relationships feeling more fulfilling, even though what they came to me was for emotional eating. But the reason that they were having issues with emotional eating was because I taught them how to regulate their emotions and communicate in their relationships. And I realized that that was really my gift, but I wasn't ready to own it yet. I was just applying it to my own relationships. But my biggest shift actually happened with my ex-husband. And we're still friends today.
I
And
read that. It's incredible. And you also have a different name for ex-husband.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I call him my husband. Just, it's a kind of a joke, but, it's like ex sort of communicates that you don't like each other anymore. Although it's kind of sad, we don't speak as often as I want. It's just that he moved literally across the country, so we don't really see each other anymore. But when we lived in the same state, we actually hung out still and, like, saw each other at parties, and like pulled each other over the side and caught up, and talked about our lives. And so it's just this understanding, that what makes, so it's like I came to an understanding of what makes compatibility is really this deep level of self knowledge that I didn't have before, that unfortunately I got through being married to him and doing this deep dive, realizing that we both weren't happy. And we worked with relationship coaches and therapists, and I really dedicating myself to healing all my judgments, healing all my toxic communication patterns. I hung a sheet of feelings and needs on my wall, and anytime we were arguing, I would take a time out and look at the feelings and needs, and talk about, okay, I'm sorry I made you wrong. Here's what I'm actually feeling, and here's what I'm actually needing. And then I could listen to him. And so it's like I really learned how to walk my talk in that relationship. And it was through that I learned that even though we're healing our blocks to unconditional love, that doesn't mean we're compatible.
That's a big, I want to pause there for a moment if you don't mind, because that's a big statement, right? And of course, I would like to ask you what makes people compatible. I know we're a little bit jumping but you said something, you dropped a bomb over there, right? Just because I'm healing our patterns and myself doesn't mean we're compatible. Can you tell us more about that?
Exactly. Yeah. And, you've probably heard other people say things like it takes more than love, to make a marriage work. It takes knowing the skills of making a marriage work, which is, of course, what you teach. Um, and, but there's also, so there's the skills, and one might say you can use these skills with anyone, but what compatibility is made out of is, just it, because it's like, yes, of course, we create our reality to a percent. Then there is also this sort of, and we can't really describe it other than, what everybody's spiritual beliefs are about what is the purpose of life. I think that's different for everybody. But it's like up for us to ask, what is the purpose of my life? And what do I want to be toasted for on my 80th birthday that I contributed to the world? Like, what is my legacy? And because at least I would say most people that would consider themselves to be highly ambitious or that have a lot of masculine energy. And, we can talk about masculine versus feminine energy, but I mean, it's not based on gender. There's women that have a lot of feminine energy that are also ambitious, and purpose is very important to them. And, that's wonderful. I mean, I consider myself one of those people, but my purpose is about a way of being, like that I'm empowering people to be open-hearted with each other. And being able to communicate truth with an open heart to each other. And so that purpose is very flexible. I can do that in a variety of different arenas. But purpose is really important. That if I can't be free to be myself, to live my purpose in a relationship, then I won't be able to be compatible with that relationship, because I'll have to betray myself.
Okay, so basically, if I understand what you're saying is, you're compatible when you don't have to sacrifice, I would say, critical or important parts of you, including your purpose and who you truly are. Is that what you're saying? What you care for?
Yeah, no, exactly. Because compatibility is so subjective. It's about knowing ourselves on a very deep level and saying, what makes me tick? What are my core values? What on my 80th birthday do I want to be toasted for? What is my purpose? And can I live my purpose with this person? Or do I need to somehow dim my light? Do I need to somehow, play a small game because they can't handle it's something? And I'm not saying that this is how it was with my ex-husband. Like I don't, we had an unsolvable issue that was different than this. It wasn't about purpose for us. But for us, it was about masculine, feminine energy. Meaning, like for me,
Means you also cannot be yourself fully if you have to, right, diminish parts of you in that sense.
right, like with him, I couldn't fully be myself in the way that I wanted to be, and he couldn't fully be himself in the way he wanted to be. But we had to have these very, very deep conversations about, this is who I want to be in the world. This is what it provides for me. This is how I feel when I have it. This is how I feel when I don't have it. This is what I want my legacy to look like. This is what I want to be toasted for on my 80th birthday, and we had to have these deep conversations in order to recognize, like, actually, as we talk about these things, we're realizing that I want you to have what you want and you want me to have what I want, but like, we can't help each other create that together. So we work better off as friends. And it was a very, very deep grieving process. But if we'd had those conversations in the beginning, which is what I coach people to do when they're single, is to have very deep conversations about, this is my life purpose, these are my values, this is what I want to be toasted for on my 80th birthday, this is my purpose, about these very, very deep, deep conversations about what makes life tick, for me and for you. And it's like, if those are not aligned from the beginning, you don't have to talk about, like, do you want marriage, in the beginning, like on the first date, because like that's pushy. But like, do you believe that two people could fall in love and stay in love for the rest of their lives? This is what I believe about that. What do you believe about that? That you can talk about on a first date.
So I want to ask you, what does it actually mean to date? If we can lay down the foundations, what does it mean to date strategically? What does it look like in practice?
Exactly. Yeah. And I love this question because I think it's a mindset shift, because I think most people get into what I would call situationships, or it's also called serial monogamy, where you just date one person for a few years until it sort of fizzles out, and then you pick another person for a few years until it sort of fizzles out. And that's fine if you don't want real long-term commitment with somebody that'll, for the rest of your life. And because it's not strategic enough, just having feelings for somebody is not strategy, it's following chemistry.
Yes.
And so what strategy is it's looking at, well, what's most important. It's not like we want you to just be in your head the whole time and be overanalyzing things. But what we need to do is strategize the most important things. So it's the things that I already started talking about, but it's saying, like, what's my purpose, which is not just our career, although, obviously it's important that the person you're with support your career if that's important to you.
I have a question about that because I started dating my husband when I was 21. I don't think I knew what my purpose was at that age. So, what do you do when you are young? You want to date strategically, but you don't have those answers because you're young. You don't know yourself that much yet.
Right, exactly. And so that's what I'm saying. I don't mean purpose in terms of career, because you don't know what you want to create in the world that young, but you know your values.
Okay.
And so at that age, or at any age, really, purpose is about values. It's not just about legacy. Legacy is part of purpose, which is, how do you want to be toasted on your 80th birthday? You don't know that when you're 21. I completely agree. I mean, some people do, but they're special, exemplary. But we know, you know, and if you don't know your values, the definition of a value is a strong idea that you have a strong feeling about. So we can just take the values of secure attachment, because secure
And so you
attachment.
have that in your book. You have the list of values that people can pick from.
Exactly. Yeah. You can take a look at a list. And also in my book, in chapter 8 of my book, I have a list of attachment needs. And in chapter 9, I have a list of NVC needs that I then take and I put into attachment needs. And so what that means is scientists at this point have developed, and, I know you talk about this too, they've developed criteria for what it means to have a relationship last in a secure way, where people have secure functioning, is what it's called. And those are the values of what it means to be a secure base and a safe haven. And those are values of emotional availability. It's collaboration, meaning we don't make unilateral decisions, we make important decisions together. We value that when I have either an important truth to share or an important feeling to share, that we value listening and giving each other quality time and validation and empathy and support. And, that I'm a safe shoulder to lean on, and, I've got your back, so that if you fall, that I'll comfort you and be there for you and prioritize you. And being a secure base is that I'm having my finger on the pulse of what makes you tick, and wanting to know what your purpose is and support you in living it. And those are the values that make people feel secure on an attachment level, but that also make people feel secure in the long term. And so even if we just have those values, like those are what I'm focusing on, having deep conversations about those values from the beginning of dating. If you don't have better values, those are the ones that the scientists have found, that you also talk about in your work about marriage.
It makes me think about I have from teenagers to young adult children and end of the teenage years, how important is for parents, for us to discuss those values. First of all, for them to see that in my husband and I, right? Because that
Right.
speaks louder than, what we do is louder than what we say. But so first of all, for them to have an example of that in the way we conduct with each other, with my husband and I, but also to speak about those values, around the dinner table. So makes me realize what you just said about young people, that the more certain they are about their values, then the easier will be for them to communicate that moving forward and to know if somebody's compatible with them or not.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why it is so important as parents to speak about values with your kids. I agree. And even just the ways in which my parents modeled that for me is one of the reasons that I think it was always easy for me to find quality people to be in relationships with, because I had these deep conversations in the beginning. It's just that because of the emotional repression in my childhood, that, which is everyone's blind spot, I didn't know how to have deep enough conversations. But at the very least, I found quality people because I just knew how to, speak about my values to the degree that I knew them. My parents did stay together until my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and they did have very conscious values, and they
Yeah,
spoke about them with me.
yeah, I can
So
relate.
I always knew how to speak about deep conversations with men that I dated, and so I always attracted quality men.
So how do you vet someone? Okay, you don't go, okay, here are my values, what do you think? How do you consciously and wisely um, can tell if someone aligns with your values and vision? What are the signs? What are the things we're looking
Yeah, it's such a good question. And so, first of all, I think it is important to have some clarity. Like for me, and so not just values. So the main compatibility coordinates that I talk about are so it's values and or the culture that you want to create. Meaning if you're not sure about your values with legacy, you can be sure about your values with culture, meaning secure attachment, like emotional availability, prioritization of the relationship. How do you want to relate to in-laws if you have like controlling parents? Like what boundaries are important to set up? What values do you want to teach your kids? Do you want to have both people stay at home and raise the kids, or one person, one person stay at home or both people work? Like it's really important to get clear about the general culture that you want to create. And so that's one coordinate. The next coordinate is around culture, like how do you make decisions together? How do you resolve conflict? I think those are the two really important questions to ask yourself, so that you ask, do you have those skills and how do you learn those skills? Because that really determines whether you're going to attract somebody who's capable. Because you only attract someone who's capable at the degree that you're capable. So it's like if you want to have somebody who doesn't make unilateral decisions, you can't make unilateral decisions. You have to learn the skill of collaboration. So it's like in order to vet for that, you have to learn how to do that. So that's the second thing is the culture. The third thing is, I know this is hard to understand when we're young. Like if we're looking to have a long-term relationship in our 20s, but it's good to notice our patterns that we get caught in. And like the patterns that I get caught in are because of my triggers. So, like, do I always feel rejected? Or am I always fearing abandonment? Or am I always am I always feeling like the other person's being pushy and I need to create more distance? So, I mean, that might also be for me to look at my attachment style and how to heal my attachment style. But it is also what triggers do I have? And then how, like, for example, for me, I knew that I get really triggered when I feel misunderstood. It's like,
So would you be saying, okay, this person makes me feel misunderstood, so this person is clearly not compatible? Or would you say, it's not about them, I'm going to do all the inner work and reassess after?
well, it's about knowing myself and knowing what do I need when I feel misunderstood in order to get back to center, in order to, be present in the relationship so I can then collaborate with this person. Like, so meaning like what I need when I feel misunderstood is for the person to be present with me and to not be attached to seeing things their way. No, you really are that way. I know the reason why you did this is because you meant to hurt me. Like, I can't be with someone who's attached to their opinions of me that are more strong than what my truth is. So it's like, that's something I'm looking out for as a quality to vet for, because if the person has that, I just can't trust anymore. It's my trigger. So it's not like I'm making them wrong for that. But when I'm dating, I'm seeing, are they open minded, right? That's the quality that I need to have in them in order to, when I get triggered, I can validate their point of view. I see why you saw it that way. I can get why you see it that way. Can you hold space for me that I felt misunderstood? Can you validate that I felt misunderstood? Because then I can come back to safety and sanity and work it out. But if the person's closed minded and no, I'm sure that you're this way and I feel misunderstood, I don't know how to come back from that because that's just my trigger. I mean, of course, I can come back from that, like if I take a space and self soothe, but I can't, like, if that person's closed minded. So I need to vet for that if I'm dating. Like, is this person, do they have an open mind? Can they see things from multiple perspectives? So that's not necessarily a question I'm asking, but it's like I have to know myself. I have to know, in my opinion, those are like three things, right? Number one, my values. Number two, the culture that I'm committed to creating. How do we make decisions together? How do we develop secure attachment? Do I have the skills to develop secure attachment? And how do I talk about that? And number three, what are my triggers? And what qualities does the person need to have in order to help me work through that? Because it's my responsibility to heal my triggers, right? They're not my therapist. But at the same time, when I'm triggered, I need him to help me co-regulate. It's one of the qualities of secure attachment. If I'm triggered and I say, I'm triggered, please help me. I feel misunderstood. Can you please help me figure out what I was trying to say so I can get back and then I can validate how you saw it. It's not like I think I'm right? But it's like if you feel misunderstood too, I'm happy to validate your feelings and needs and your perceptions. And I teach my clients about this analogy of the three blind men and the elephant. I don't know if you're...
No, tell me more.
That.
Tell everybody.
Yeah, it's a really brilliant analogy in my opinion, because the simplicity of it is that there's three blind men that want to understand what an elephant looks like. So one of them's on his trunk, another's on the leg, another's on the tail, and they're arguing about who's right. The one on the trunk is like, the elephant's like a hose, and the one who's on the leg is like, you're wrong, the elephant's like a tree trunk, and the one who's on the tail is like, no, you're both wrong, and the elephant's like a broom, and they're arguing, and it's like the question is who's right? Right? It's like
That's such a powerful analogy. Wow.
right, because it's like none of them are right, but they're all right from their unique perspective. But none of them are right because the truth requires you to raise your perspective to a higher level. So it's like, for me and my value system, I knew I needed to be with a guy who can validate my perspective when I feel misunderstood. And then I can validate his perspective when he feels misunderstood. But we both know that that's not the truth. That we can validate each other's personal truth, but we're both also committed to a higher truth, to seeing the whole elephant, to knowing like, wait a minute, the original purpose was that we wanted to band together to get our additional perspectives, to see you see it this way, I see it that way. What's the higher truth? And that's one of my values, is that I want to be with someone who values getting to the higher truth. And, I knew that about myself. So it's like, that's what I'm vetting for. So it's not like you can necessarily ask simple questions to ask those things. Like, you can't just be like, hey, do you value higher truth? Like, on the
I
first
understand.
date.
So,
But you can still talk about it, right? Like, I can speak about my insights
well,
in
if you
my.
know what you're looking for, right, then you know where you are paying attention. You know where are you looking to receive and see in the other person. Then if there are any red flags, it's going to become very clear. The question is not to ignore them, because I think that many times, because of fears, I'm getting too old, my friends are getting married, we compromise. So I think that there is a component of self knowledge and knowing what you're looking for and what kind of home are you looking to build. Like, if you imagine your home, what are you looking to build, and how does compatibility looks like and feels like, and you described it so beautifully. But information or knowledge is power, right? And the power is, okay, now that you feel all this and you know all this, what are you going to do about it? Because I think that many times we compromise. Many couples compromise, even though they know it. As I started the podcast, right? Many say, "Oh, I knew that from the beginning. It wasn't the right person." But then we compromise for the wrong reasons. We're looking for instant gratification, rather than that understanding that our relationship is not supposed to provide instant gratification. This is someone we're building a life with, a home with. And I think this is where it can get, uh, you know, knowing yourself can lead you to more responsibility, but it cannot replace it. You still have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, it's true. It's a bitter pill to swallow, right? Because it's like we want it to feel. I think this is like what makes relationships different than other areas of life where we know we need to put the work in, like with fitness, for example. We know we need to put the work in. We know if we don't work out that our muscles aren't going to grow. But like with relationships, there's a way where we think it's supposed to be easy if it's the right person. We're still seduced with that idea.
Absolutely. I want to switch a little bit to another question that I can almost feel our audience asking, what do you do when someone doesn't want marriage, but you do?
Exactly. And it's funny, this is actually how it was with my now husband.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
I know you shared that story in your book. I read it and it's wonderful.
oh, thank you.
Tell
Yeah.
us more about that.
Right, because and it's he was actually the one that made an analogy. He has brilliant analogies. I actually use a bunch of his analogies in the book. That because it is about seduction, but not in a, I'm not like, I actually think that Robert Greene is brilliant, but like I don't like how dark his truths are, so I'm not talking about seduction in a manipulative way, like in his Art of Seduction. Like, I actually couldn't finish that book. um, but so it's more like, if you're really in touch with your purpose and your values, right, then what we want is to look at, like, you want, because I'm speaking to women here, but I mean, obviously, I know that a fair number of listeners are men, so I'm speaking to both genders and all genders. But like, this analogy makes the most sense to people that identify as women, because seduce, like, what the analogy that my husband made was that seducing a man into commitment is akin to seducing a woman sexually, and we want to be seduced in a way that feels good by a man that we're in love with in an ethical way. So it's like, that's the type of seduction I'm talking about,
Yeah, I love that analogy.
not the manipulative kind, right?
That's right.
So, because there's a lot of different kinds of seduction, but so it's like, if I'm being seduced, what I'm paying attention to is, how safe do I feel? Is he paying attention to, like, if I have any kind of, sexual trauma in the past, like, I'm going to want him to ask about, what do you need to feel safe? Like, do I need emotional connection? Do I need to know that he's going to call me the next day? what indications does he need to give to me about the context of the relationship that my body will feel safe to open, that I'm not feeling concerned about something, that I'm not going to be, feeling physically unsafe, that I'm not going to be feeling emotionally unsafe in some way. That some people only, and most women get to this point where we're not really looking to be sexual with someone that we're not creating something with, because sexual energy is creative energy.
That's right.
So, in that sense, if a guy wants to seduce us sexually, then he has to talk about life purpose and what are we creating together, and do we want to, and this is a whole nother conversation about when to sleep with a guy. I don't have a should with that. In terms of sleeping with a guy before you're monogamous, before you're exclusive, before you're engaged, before you're married. I support people with all of their beliefs and how to hold their boundaries then inside of those beliefs. So I don't want to go there with this analogy because that just gets too nuanced. But it is an analogy of there's a resistance that we have to opening our bodies, and it's up to a guy to be intuitive about how to navigate that resistance in an open-hearted, collaborative, safe way where we're, like unraveling my resistance together in this playful dance that feels safe and connected. That's how a seduction should feel.
So how
It's
can
like,
a woman do that to seduce a man to get married with her?
exactly. So it's the same feeling that you're looking for, but it's like, I want to make that analogy because it's like we know intuitively what a guy needs to do sexually to create that safety for us. It's the same thing that we need to do emotionally to create the safety for him.
Mm.
It's using that type of intuition. It's like,
What was your way of seducing your husband to get married?
exactly. So for him, he was really scared of particular things, and I had to make it safe for him to recognize that, like, I wasn't gonna be the way he feared. And that took time. And it wasn't like I can convince him. I had to demonstrate
That's right.
through our relating. Like, he, for example, was really scared about me having emotional needs because I am very dramatic when I'm upset. I learned how to not have confrontational language with it so that I could be vulnerable instead. And I think that, that's the reason how I demonstrated it. But, like, for example, his ex would get really dramatic and controlling when she was upset and, like, want her way. And then he would feel like he had to compromise himself in order to not have the drama. And that's what he was scared in, because he was like, I will never, I don't want to, like, I don't want to commit because a woman's going to be a burden because I'm going to have to compromise myself.
That's right.
And so I said to him, oh, well, gosh, I'm sorry you went through that, and it's true. I think most people, and I do get dramatic when I'm upset. It would make sense you're scared of that. Most people don't know how to not get controlling when they're upset. I'm going to demonstrate that for you. Like, I'll get upset about something and I'll do it in a way that's not a burden. I won't get controlling. I'll get, hey, this is what I need, and I'm happy to also meet your needs and not control you. Because needs versus strategies. And he's like, what? Tell me more. What is this? So I'm like, well, needs don't conflict, strategies conflict. So I'm not going to control you. I'm going to say, this is what I need. I'm going to say, what do you need? Let's create a win-win solution. He's like, what? So it's like I'm demonstrating the opposite of what he's scared of.
And that can be learned. If you don't know how to do that, that can be learned.
Right, exactly. It was like at that point, because I learned that with my ex-husband, that's really where the rubber hit the road. I mean, it was very painful, and I went through a very intense grieving process after that with my own integrity, that I wasn't able to walk my talk in the way that I thought I could, with my ex-husband, and that I then had to really learn what I was capable of and really learn these skills fully. And I don't think everyone should have to go through a painful divorce in order to learn the skills, but that's how I learned. And so, yeah, it was like, now I have them, and now I can demonstrate, like, I'm not going to be a burden. I'm going to be collaborative. I'm going to show you that it can feel harmonious. if we want different things. And so he was like, all right, I look forward to you showing that. And then so I did, until eventually, I mean, I know I quote him in my book, but it was just a really sweet quote when he's just like, you've so beyond blown away my doubts about committing to you, like a bulldozer over matchsticks, just
Yeah, I remember
obliterated
that
them.
reading that.
I was just, can I quote you on that? That's a really, talk about dramatic analogies, but I like that one.
Wow. Thank you, Valerie, for sharing that and for sharing your personal story. We're getting to the end, and I know that you have a free gift for our listeners. So tell us more about it and where can they find it?
Yes, thank you. And it's ironic. It's like I keep saying I'm going to publish it more widely, but it's like I hired an editor and I'm the bottleneck. Like, so the second edition is not published yet, but it is available. The first edition is available on my website. It's been available on my website since 2018 is when I published it. So it's called The Commitment Roadmap. 234 pages and 22 chapters of from the first date getting this clarity on what's most important to you, values, vision, culture, deal breakers, emotional needs, triggers, how to heal limiting beliefs, how to really get past your patterns, how to really date strategically and when to be exclusive, and how to create secure attachment. It's really all in there. And so that is available on my website. There's a tab that says products, and because I have an online course as well. So this is the book. But my website is coachvaleriegreene.com. So that's CoachValerieGreene.com. And the book is /commitment. And I also have a free gift that is a few chapters out of the book. It's called The Magnetic Dating Formula. And it's basically just like a very quick chapter about your values, how to really find your values, how to create deep connection on a date, what questions to ask in the first few dates to create this deep connection and see if he shares your values, when to sleep with a guy, if you want to create secure attachment, and how to tell if you're ready or not, and it so I do kind of give just those. I answered those questions in an excerpt that I call the magnetic dating formula. And so I gave you the link to put below this video. I believe it's just /single.
Perfect. We're going to add this to the show notes so everybody can find it easily. All right. Well, it was a very meaningful conversation, a combination of strategy, teaching us, and also your beautiful stories, which emphasize that we all go through similar stories and that we can find what we're looking for. So I can't thank you enough for sharing your heart, again, your story, your roadmap with us. It's really a powerful reminder that love isn't just a feeling, it's a conscious choice we make in how we show up, how we heal, and who we invite in. Right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Valerie, for being here with us. And to our listeners, thank you for your presence. If this conversation moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own strength, of your own love story, please take a moment to subscribe, share it with someone you care about, and help us spread this story to more hearts who need them. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks in the next episode. Until next time.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye bye.